Banri, a freshman law student at a Tokyo university, arrives late for his entrance ceremony. Not knowing how to get to the university, he discreetly follows two other students and meets Mitsuo, another freshman, who quickly befriends him. They are greeted by a beautiful young woman who presents Mitsuo with a bouquet of roses and then proceeds to smack him with them before leaving. Mitsuo later explains that the woman was Koko, his childhood friend and arranged fiancé, whom he has run away from as he does not reciprocate her feelings. Banri and Mitsuo learn that Koko was also a student at their university, much to Mitsuo's horror. She becomes acquainted with Banri during a shared class and he soon becomes smitten. After class, Banri meets and befriends freshmen Shinami and Linda, a second-year student and member of the Japanese Festival Culture Research Club. On his way home, he once again runs into Koko, who uses his phone to locate Mitsuo, but upon returning it, he notices the phone number for a hospital, causing him to remember a time when he was on a bridge and was seemingly run over by a motorbike. Banri has a dream of himself apparently injured and fleeing from a hospital, but upon awakening, he cannot remember any more than that. Arriving at the university gate, Banri meets Koko, who was waiting for Mitsuo, and the two talk some more, with Banri noticing that Koko seems lonely without Mitsuo. Later that night, Banri tells Mitsuo about Koko, but Mitsuo brushes it off, saying Koko is just acting so to get Banri to bring her to him. To brighten the mood, Mitsuo invites Banri to the film club's welcoming party where Shinami, a member of the club, gets Mitsuo to join. The party is soon crashed by the tea club's party, who drag Banri off to join in their festivities, where he meets new friend Sato, nicknamed Nijigen. The next day, Banri notices that Koko has still not made any friends and tries to encourage her to join a club. Another student overhears them and ends up inviting both of them on her club's overnight trip to see if they would be willing to join. Still wanting to help Koko, Banri decides to accompany Koko when she agrees to go. On the day of the scheduled club trip, Banri meets up with Koko and Nijigen, who is also invited. When the club members arrive to pick up the attendance, Banri becomes suspicious of them when he notices they all wear a similar pendant, and more so when they bring the group to a remote location. The club then reveals itself as a cult who wishes for Banri's group to join them, but Banri manages to convince them to let others go. As the others leave, Koko decides to stay with Banri, and the two ultimately are able to escape and hide in the woods. As they hide, Banri and Koko bond by getting to know more about one another. Koko reveals she is actually a nice person, and only acts stuck up around Mitsuo due to her feelings for him, while also confessing that she was using her friendship with Banri to get closer to Mitsuo. Banri in turn reveals about having amnesia, and that he feels that his family and friends want the current Banri to disappear and have the old Banri return. When the pair hears the cult members looking for them, they flee further into the woods until they are found by Linda. Later during a break, Banri, Mitsuo, and Shinami get together to talk, but they are interrupted by Koko, who begins to berate and belittle Shinami, causing Mitsuo to leave with Shinami and leaving Banri to comfort a remorseful Koko. After classes, the pair is once again met by Linda, who invites them to participate in one of the festival club's dances rehearsals, which afterwards makes Banri decide to join, with Koko thinking about joining. Later that night, Mitsuo tells Banri he will settle things with Koko because he wants to pursue a relationship with Shinami, and the next day Mitsuo flatly rebuffs Koko's affection in front of Banri. Koko asks Mitsuo if their time together meant nothing to him, and Mitsuo replies that while he treasures their time together, he only sees her as a childhood friend. Koko angrily yells at him to forget their history, resulting in Mitsuo leaving and Koko yelling at him to disappear, but realizes her words were hurtful to Banri, causing her to continuously apologize in tears. After a few hours, Koko and Banri are invited by a girl called Nana to her concert, and Koko goes to vent her frustration, but is thrown out and spends the night at Banri's apartment. During the night, Banri and Koko talk, where Koko reveals she needs him, while Banri confesses his love for her. After she leaves, she texts Banri encouraging him to not forget about his lost memories, which motivates him to return to his home in Shizuoka, where he finds a scrapbook containing pictures of himself and Linda in high school together. After finding the photo of him and Linda, Banri runs to the bridge where the accident that caused his amnesia occurred to remember more, but cannot. Unbeknownst to him, the spirit of the 18-year-old Banri watches him and explains that the fall caused all his memories to be lost. After returning to school, Banri meets with Koko, who gives him a mirror that matches hers to commemorate their friendship. The next day, Banri and Mitsuo run into Koko, who begins to act overly cheerful and dramatic about her friendship with Banri. Linda, who is helping Koko register for classes, soon joins them and meets Mitsuo, while later inquiring about Koko and Banri's joining the festival club. Koko answers that both of them will join, while Banri wonders why Linda has not mentioned that she knows him from before his accident. At their first dance rehearsal, Koko demonstrates she cannot dance, which makes her to be depressed and cry. After calming down, she apologizes to Banri for her behavior and confesses that she is still recovering from being dumped by Mitsuo. Banri comforts her and reaffirms their friendship by using the mirror she gave him. That night, Banri recalls the memory from when he escaped the hospital. He had seen a flashing light from his window, and when he snuck out to see what it was, he discovered it was Linda. It is revealed that she was the one who inspired Banri to come to Tokyo. Banri wonders why Linda has not mentioned any of this to him, and the spirit of Banri laments that he cannot tell the current Banri how important Linda was to him. In a dream, Banri remembers that after his love confession to Linda, she agreed to tell him her response the following night on the bridge where Banri would have his accident. Koko notices Banri's unusual behavior around Linda, but when she questions him, he denies that anything is wrong. Shinami finds the two and invites them to a party, but Koko declines out of dislike for Shinami. But this does not dissuade Shinami, who explains to Banri that she likes Koko. Banri convinces Koko to attend alongside Mitsuo and Nijigen, but Koko and Mitsuo end up arguing about Shinami, which ends with Mitsuo confessing to Shinami and her turning him down. On their way home, Banri decides to end his friendship with Koko due to her lasting infatuation for Mitsuo, and despite Koko's refusal to this, he leaves her. The next day, Linda notices the tense atmosphere between the two, but when she inquiries about it, Banri confronts her on not telling him they previously knew each other. Linda explains that she said nothing out of fear of confusing him and driving him away. Afterwards, Koko meets up with Banri to know what happened, but he takes off running due to the revelation from Linda. Koko manages to catch up to Banri and tells him not leave her, confessing that she loves him. After Koko's confession of love to Banri, she's taken to the police station for bicycle theft. Banri is greeted by her father at the station and even hits her for being such an idiot. He apologizes to Banri for all she's put him through and hopes that this event won't stop him from being her friend. She says to her father that Banri is not a friend and replies in English, "My boyfriend." The next day, Koko is more cheerful than usual thanks to her newfound relationship with Banri. Mitsuo arrives at the university with new blonde hair, which Banri compliments. When Mitsuo promises to act normal around Shinami, he runs off when she appears. Shinami tells the group that Mitsuo asked her to not talk with him again after what he did and how everyone around him is gossiping about it. She agrees to make Mitsuo feel better, yet hopes that he will be able to talk to her again soon. Meanwhile, Banri is receiving frequent calls from Linda to meet and chat about what happened yesterday at the festival club. When Nana, Banri's next-door neighbor, gets involved, she tricks Banri into coming to his apartment alone by calling him about a plumbing leak. There she forces Linda, who is waiting in her apartment, to talk about their feelings to each other. Linda tells him that he has always been special to her, and she was like her older sister in high school, even though he was unpopular and hard to get along with. Banri apologizes for yesterday, yet Linda says that she should be the one apologizing after all the trouble she has put him through in the past. In a flashback, a lonely Banri was standing in front of a building, waiting Linda, and decided to come directly to her at the female change room. But before he had his hand reach the door, he heard Linda's conversation with her friends about Linda's relationship with Banri, that Linda rejected that she liked him. Banri becomes furious and runs off just as Linda leaves. The next day, Linda tries to greet Banri like nothing happened, but Banri doesn't respond and avoids Linda for the rest of the day. After school, it was raining and Banri walks home with his umbrella, only to find Linda waiting for him at the gate crying. She says to him that it's all the opposite and apologizes. Banri responds by saying to forget since he doesn't like her either. Banri then walks Linda home and Banri's ghost wonders what she meant by it's all the opposite. Later, Koko calls Banri about Mitsuo being in trouble. Then Linda leaves and Banri continues his conversation, and after he finished, he hides the photo of his past. After he reached Mitsuo's house, he finds a girl asking Mitsuo to a date, much to Mitsuo's madness. Banri walks, greets Mitsuo like his lover. They introduce themselves as lovers and the girl runs away. Banri encourages Mitsuo and then he calls Nijigen, telling that he had an idea for cheering Mitsuo and Shinami up. In the amusement park, Koko and Nijigen later meet up with Banri and Mitsuo. When Mitsuo asked why Koko was there too, Koko answers that she just wanted to be with Banri. But then Shinami calls Nijigen. Koko takes the phone and answers it, saying that they are preparing a party to cheer Mitsuo, and tells that Shinami also must come. Then she passed the phone to Nijigen and embraced Banri to recharge her love towards Banri, because she used her kindness towards Mitsuo again. In front of the station gate, Banri calls Shinami, saying that he and Koko are waiting for her in the station. Shinami congrats Banri and Koko for finally being lovers. Later in the amusement park, they have fun until Mitsuo and Shinami made up and did a party on Banri's place, with Nijigen suggested that they should make a group, and everyone agrees. Later, Koko suddenly falls ill and does not come to school for several days. When Koko does return, Banri notices she is dejected, but she denies anything is wrong until she breaks down in tears and relays to Banri her fears that he might one day leave her. Banri reassures her he will not. Banri and Koko ride the train and discuss Koko's new festival club nicknamed Robo Girl, so named because she looks like a robot when she dances. They look forward to the Oven Dance Festival and the beach trip they have planned. They meet up with the rest of the festival club and discuss the preparations needed before the festival. Afterwards, Banri speaks with the upperclassmen and asks for advice about his beach trip with Koko. When they find out that Banri only intends to take her by train for a day trip, they tell him that a classy girl like Koko won't be happy with the low-budget, simple trip he has planned. They advise him to get a job and make some money. Upon finding out Banri needs money, Nana invites him to be a waiter at a weekend party. She also insists he bring Mitsuo with him. On the night of the party, Banri tells Mitsuo that Koko had wanted to come over, but that he told her he had to work on a report. At the party, Banri finds himself dressed as a maid. The party host offers Mitsuo an extra 10,000 yen to wear nothing but a flesh-colored Speedo, which he accepts. While working, Banri sees that Linda is also working at the party dressed as a devil girl. Meanwhile, Koko was unable to contact Banri as he is not carrying his phone with him at the party. Banri is enjoying working as a waiter at the party along with everyone else. Mitsuo even takes up the host's offer of more money to be one of the dancers. Some of the guests see Banri and Linda together and insist on taking their picture. The two of them get carried away and strike several provocative poses just as Koko, who has come looking for Banri, arrives. She throws a drink in Banri's face and slaps him. Linda tries to apologize, but Nana stops her and Banri takes Koko away to the fitting room. Unable to talk for long as he is still on the job, he gives her the key to his place and tells her to wait for him there. Koko leaves and Banri continues working, but is concerned about his relationship. Once the party is over and they receive their pay, Banri tells Mitsuo that his salary might have lost its usefulness. On his way home, Banri checks his phone and is shocked to discover that Koko has been texting him all day. He hurries home to a dark apartment and is relieved to find Koko waiting for him. The couple apologize to one another, and Koko shows the picture of himself and Linda, much to his surprise. He admits that they were former classmates and he had been in love with her. He then goes on to tell Koko that his feelings for Linda return sometimes in flashes. Koko hugs him in response and says that all she wants is for Banri not to remember the past. The next morning, Banri tells Linda that he wants to talk with her. Beside the river, he asks if she loved the old Banri. She replies that she only thought of him as a friend. Banri then tries to rip the picture of them together, with the ghost of the old Banri looking on and saying no. He drops the picture, which Linda then picks up. Banri gets to his feet and tells her to pretend that they are just strangers, as he wants to cut ties with the past. Linda realizes that Koko is bothered by her being a part of his past life and says she understands and that they are doing the right thing. She then rips the picture into pieces, surprising Banri. The next morning, Koko and Banri take a picture together, forming new memories for just the two of them. Later, the festival club gathers at the Ava Dance Festival and prepares to perform. Almost everyone is in a good mood, but Koko is experiencing severe stage fright. The festival is about to start, so the other club members start to abandon Koko where she sits. Linda then suggests they teach the first years about the special dance as they circle around Koko and Banri. Banri joins the circle and soon Koko does too. With everyone now ready, they successfully perform in the festival. Afterwards, Koko and Banri enjoy the festival together and get ready to watch the fireworks. Ghost Banri watches nearby, lamenting that he still loves Linda and that Banri has rejected the feelings he left behind. He vows to become an evil spirit and curse Banri with unhappiness. It suddenly starts to rain, forcing Koko and Banri to run off and seek shelter. Later, Banri receives word that the festival club's camp has been cancelled. Koko arrives and announces she is going to make yakisoba for him. Banri is excited, but Koko insists that he sit blindfolded with his hands in his pockets while she cooks. The blindfold slips, allowing Banri to see what is really going on. Koko is embarrassed and insists it was all a joke. Later, on an evening walk, she admits that her family's maid prepared the yakisoba. They stop and sit in a park where they discuss Koko going to culinary school and her family's upcoming vacation to Barcelona. Koko tries to kiss Banri, but he pulls back and walks away. Later, he wishes he could ask Koko not to go to Barcelona and stay with him. Sato calls Banri and tells him that he heard Banri was lonely. As they discuss their wish to hang out with Mitsuo, Koko arrives and overhears the conversation. She is suspicious until Banri hands over the phone and she discovers it is Sato to whom Banri is speaking. Finding out that Mitsuo may have a girlfriend, she formulates a plan to determine her identity and enlists Banri's and Sato help. They start by watching Chinami's house, thinking that she is the most likely candidate. Chinami discovers them, so Banri tells her they were just visiting her. To their surprise, she tells them she's free to hang out, and when asked, she admits that she's not seeing anyone, and that she hasn't seen Mitsuo since summer vacation started. They all go to the place the film club hangs out, but before they get there, they observe Mitsuo and Linda walking together as if on a date. Later, Koko arrives at Shinami's house with a bag full of swimsuits. The two of them try the swimsuits on and discuss Koko's and Banri's relationship, and Koko tells about Banri resisting her kiss in the park. Shinami points out that Banri probably resists because he wants to show Koko how much he really cares for her. Mitsuo wishes he could have invited Linda and wonders where her hometown is located. Banri lies and says he doesn't know. On the day of the trip to the beach, the group encounters several mishaps. Despite the delays, the group made it to the beach in the middle of a rainstorm. Needing to use the restroom, Koko gets out of the car in her swimsuit, and the rest of the group follows through. The rain stops and the group enjoys their day at the beach, with Sato feeling exhausted that Koko instead drives the car back home. Along the way, Banri falls asleep despite trying his best efforts to remain awake. Shortly afterward, Koko becomes tired and falls asleep at the wheel. Moments before the car goes out of control, Banri wakes up and hits the brakes, causing the car to come to a complete stop after colliding with the guardrail. The group is escorted back to the city by the police. Upon arrival, Koko gets slapped by her father, and the trip to Barcelona is cancelled. Banri goes over to Koko's home to talk with her, where Koko is in her room unwilling to get out of bed. The accident reminds Koko that she has been immature despite being an adult. Banri tells Koko that even though she needs to grow up, she needs to stay true to herself. Koko's father enters her room and orders Banri to cook up some ramen while Koko gets back into bed. Banri arrives at the Golden Time restaurant where the festival club is setting up for a gathering at the fireworks. Linda also arrives late. She asks if Banri will be going home and he says he will. So Linda brings up that there will be a class reunion and wonders if Banri will come. After Koko makes the decision for him, Koko and Banri talk about how Banri is ready to face his past. The next day, Banri is on a train home. Meanwhile, Shinami had invited Koko to help her unpack and asked her to stay overnight. Elsewhere, at the club where Linda works, Mitsuo and Linda talk. Mitsuo discovers that Linda is going to the same place as Banri, but when he presses her a bit about it and tries to playfully flirt, Linda storms off. Koko enters Banri's apartment alone after going through his mail because she misses Banri so much. After throwing a tantrum and sniffing Banri's pillow, she tries to get a hold of herself by doing The Exorcist. Nana catches her in the act, then suggests that Koko do that during Nana's next show, but Koko refuses. Later, Nana goes for shopping, leaving her alone in the apartment. Shortly after, a gangster-looking fella knocks, and before you say, "Aw, what a gentleman," it's good to know that he threatened to kill her. After finding her hiding spot, she do some wacky shit scaring him and was able to knock him out. Later, when Nana came back, it gets revealed it was the bassist for her band and it was just an act. In other words, it was just a prank, bro. Meanwhile, at the Banri home, Linda and her brother show up to go to the class reunion. During the drive, Linda spots the mirror Koko gave to Banri and determines that Banri is very nervous. At the high school, Banri becomes so nervous about not having his memories that he won't move, so Linda tricks him into going into the reunion. They arrive and everyone puts on a red or blue shirt with name tags to play dodgeball. Later that night, Linda and Banri talk on the way home and how Linda is happy that Banri has finally accepted his situation despite all the friction between them. Banri then goes to take a picture of the bridge where he fell, then experiences a vision of the accident. He tries to save the ghost Banri, but ghost Banri forces himself to fall, and new Banri drops his mirror and breaks it, wondering if his memories are returning. Banri discusses the event of ghost Banri falling from the bridge with a doctor who can do nothing more than provide a sedative for him. When Banri returns to Tokyo, he recalls how his mother gave him her ring from her youth to give to his girlfriend, but Koko and the others meet him before he can think more on it. That night, they have a return home dinner for Banri, and he notices that Shinami has cut her hair. Back at Banri's apartment with only Banri and Koko, Banri apologizes to Koko for breaking their friendship mirror, then intends to give Koko his mother's ring. Before he can do anything, Koko gives him a piece of art she made for him, then tells him she wants him right now, but several things get in the way, and nothing ends up happening. Much later, Mitsuo gets permission to film the festival club, but Linda is unhappy and Mitsuo never gets a chance to talk with Linda. In the morning on the way to school, Banri runs into Nana and tries to talk to her during the train ride, but realizes she isn't in the mood to talk about anything before falling asleep on Banri. Later, while Banri considers how wonderful his life is going, he then has a mental break as his past self reasserts itself and he freaks out, running off. Linda and Koko go after him, with Linda finding him later as Banri tries to figure out what's happened to him. When Linda brings up Koko, his new self returns, but now Banri fears that old Banri is going to take him over again. Koko tries to comfort Banri by having dinner with their friends at his apartment as he plans to tell them about his background and other recent troubles. At Banri's apartment, Chinami arrives earlier as planned to have a serious conversation with Banri before the others arrive. As Banri intends to tell Chinami about her past with Linda, Banri gets possessed by his former self and begins calling out for Linda until finally storming out his apartment, but not before telling Linda and the others to not tell Koko that his memories of his past are returning, not knowing that he was filmed all along by Chinami's camera. Later, Koko refuses to accept the ring Banri gave her and apparently ends their relationship. Hours pass and Banri meets Koko's father, who drives Banri home. Banri deduces that Koko may already had knowledge of Banri taking anti-anxiety medications. Being dropped off, Banri encounters Nana, who Banri confides with for his recent dilemma. The next day, encouraged by Nana's words, Banri plans to confront Koko. Afterwards, Banri is met by Koko, seemingly acting the same whenever the two interact. However, after meeting up with their friends, Koko nonchalantly declares that she and Banri had broken up, much to the shock and bewilderment of Banri and the others. After Koko lashes out on them, Chinami tells Banri that Koko may have seen the clip of Banri in his anxiety attack at his apartment from Chinami's camera the other night. Staying optimistic, Banri later informs Linda about his breakup with Koko and tells Mitsuo about his past relationship with Linda and apologizes for not telling him. Koko then appears as she hands down a letter of resignation from the club to its president until Banri cuts her off, causing her to leave with Banri. Banri confronts Koko. Koko explains the reason why she decided to resign from the festival club is due to Banri's unwillingness to be in the same place as her. Banri reveals to Koko that his memories from before his accident are returning and he would eventually return to his former self, and his memories since the accident will disappear. Koko reveals that she still loves him but only broke up with him because she would not be able to bear him forgetting her. She makes him promise that if he still remembers her, they will stay together forever. After Banri thanks Koko for all they'd shared together, the two agree to become friends and Koko revokes her resignation from the club. Afterwards, Banri tries to patch things up with Mitsuo, who had not contacted him since he revealed to Mitsuo his past with Linda. Meanwhile, with their school festival fast approaching, Banri's condition worsens, much to Koko's fright. While waiting for Koko and Mitsuo on the street, Banri suffers another memory break and fails to recognize them when they arrive. He runs away, calling out desperately for Linda, who comes to his side and snaps him out of it. After returning to his senses, Banri plans to return to his hometown, feeling certain that his memories and former self will return. Later, Banri reconciles with Mitsuo, who tearfully tells him that he finally learned about his memory loss that he's going through, swearing to Banri that he has his full support. Upon losing his recent memories, Banri returns to his hometown, after fiddling the notes he made for himself prior to the return of his former memories. Banri opens his email account and discovers that someone has been sending emails to Koko under his name. Linda and Banri seem to have returned to their easy friendship, with Linda spending Christmas with the Tada family. Koko arrives at Banri's home. Banri first mistakes her for Chinami. Koko hands Banri a DVD and his cracked mirror case, which Banri believes is Koko's, and returns it to her. After asking for directions to the bridge where Banri fell, Koko leaves. Going back into the house, Banri finds Koko's unbroken mirror and realizes it isn't his, and his memories of Koko come flooding back. As a result, Banri runs after Koko to the bridge where he meets his conflicted former self. Who isn't happy to see him, he lashes out at him for pretending he didn't exist, despite being by his side and ignoring his own feelings for Linda, but agrees that nothing can be done about it. As he tries to leave, Linda appears and tells him that she has always loved him. Happy he got his answer, the former Banri makes amends with his current self, hands Banri the ring he had dropped at the bridge, and disappears. Afterwards, Banri embraces Koko, and the two recall their promise that as long as they remember one another, the two will stay together for the rest of their lives. They profess their love for one another, and Banri presents his ring to Koko, which she gladly accepts. Banri later returns to Tokyo and attends university with his friends. His relationship with Koko is still intact. Mitsuo and Linda are shown flirting while Koko and Banri kiss, with Koko wearing the ring Banri gave her.